I thank you all for coming to witness this important event, the repatriation of some 3,800 ancient artifacts by United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I'm grateful to all those who made today's restitution possible. ICE Acting Director Thomas Homan and his colleagues, U.S. Customs and Border Protection Assistant Commissioner Ian Saunders and his colleagues. In particular, is this working? In particular, in particular,
Just fine.
okay. In particular, for their vigilance and professionalism, without which the smuggled artifacts would not have been discovered. U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Richard Donahue, whose colleagues, together with ICE's Homeland Security Investigations special agents, conducted critically important investigations leading to what we are witnessing today. I also want to include our friends from the State Department, Andrew Peek and his colleagues. Thank you for coming. Such efforts are to be noted. Not only do they enforce the law, they serve as a sense of historic justice, and they help in the fight against criminal and terrorist networks. They serve a sense of historic justice because they are returning items to their natural homes and to a nation that is very attached to its cultural heritage. They help in the fight against criminal and terrorist networks because they prevent the latter from taking advantage of these precious items to raise funds. The attachment of Iraqis to the witnesses of their rich history is not new. Since the 1920s, Iraq has adopted strict laws to protect its cultural heritage, with a blanket ban on the possession, sale, exporting, and trafficking of such items. Iraq will seek to apply all existing legislation to repatriate any illegally exported archaeological pieces. But the legal protections in place still include time bars and cutoff dates that prevent us from recovering our cultural heritage. This regime should be improved and expanded. Historical artifacts are timeless. The legal regime protecting them should therefore not be time-bound. In closing, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the U.S. authorities present here for their critical role, and to you all for being here to witness this event. And I pass on the floor to Assistant Commissioner Saunders. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be here representing U.S. Customs and Border Protection. CBP is honored to have played a role together with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the return of these national treasures to their rightful owner, the Republic of Iraq. In doing so, we ensure the protection of this priceless cultural heritage and secure a precious, tangible link to the past for future generations. The pillaging, theft, and trafficking of cultural property, art, and antiquities not only results in physical destruction of irreplaceable objects, but also the loss of valuable historical context and information belonging to us all regarding those objects, and the opportunity for a deeper learning and understanding of our shared history and heritage. CBP is committed to protecting and preserving cultural property, arts, and antiquities, utilizing all available authorities and resources at its disposal to do so. CBP vigorously enforces existing U.S. import restrictions on trafficked cultural property, art, and antiquities. We coordinate closely with ICE Homeland Security investigations to seize trafficked illicit cultural property attempted to be imported to or exported from or trafficked through the United States in violation of law, pursuing civil administrative penalties against guilty parties. We support ICE HSI colleagues in criminal investigations and coordinate with the Department of State to repatriate protected cultural property, art, and antiquities to their rightful countries of origin. I want to take this opportunity to recognize two of my colleagues at CBP who have been instrumental in this case. John Rupkes from our National Targeting Center, who raised concerns with the 5 packages shipped through FedEx Memphis, and Charles Sirocco with our Fines, Penalties, and Forfeiture Office in New York for his support of the associated criminal investigation and related seizure and forfeiture of the protected antiquities in this case. Their exemplary work and coordination with our ICE colleagues were instrumental in bringing us to today's return of these antiquities. As was done in this case, CBP routinely conducts targeting of shipments for examination and/or investigative referral to identify those suspected of trafficking artifacts from conflict areas. Our collaboration and cooperation will enable us to effectively deter, detect, disrupt, and prosecute violators that would deprive us and generations after us of these invaluable artifacts and what they teach us about the development of human civilization. It's a pleasure for me to participate in today's ceremony for the repatriation of these artifacts to the Republic of Iraq, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here. And now I'd like to offer the floor to Acting Director Tom Holman, our colleague from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Director Holman.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to join you here today. Thank you, Ambassador Yasmin, for hosting this important event and welcoming us into your home. On behalf of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, I appreciate the opportunity to help return the significant collection of ancient cultural artifacts to the government and the people of Iraq. ICE is responsible for enforcing more than 400 federal laws and statutes governing border control, customs, trade, and immigration. Through our Homeland Security Investigation Directorate, ICE conducts a wide range of criminal investigations to protect national security and uphold public safety. Our workforce is dedicated to safeguarding the innocent from exploitation by individuals and organizations intent on causing harm and breaking our laws. One of the crimes under our jurisdiction, which a lot of people don't understand, is the theft and trafficking of another country's priceless and irreplaceable national treasures. Stealing a nation's cultural property and antiquities is one of the oldest forms of organized transnational crimes that many times funds terrorist activities. Technology and the ease of doing business anywhere in the world has helped make this type of criminal activity a global concern. Federal law requiring smuggling and trafficking of merchandise provides HSI and its federal law enforcement partners with the criminal and civil authority to take a leading role in investigating these crimes. This specific case began early in 2011 when U.S. Customs and Border Protection, our sister agency, targeted and intercepted 5 boxes of artifacts entering the United States. The teamwork and cooperation that exists between ICE and our partners in the domestic and global law enforcement and intelligence communities is essential to ensuring these priceless artifacts are returned to their rightful home, where they can be seen, enjoyed, and studied for generations to come. The special agents in our cultural property program, the real heroes for today who's standing to my left, investigated these crimes, and they investigate these types of crimes daily, tracking the movement of stolen and looted goods, prosecuting the criminals involved, and working to recover and return the artifacts and objects to the rightful owners. I want to take this opportunity to recognize a few of these agents, partners, and experts whose hard work and dedication led us here today. Working for ICE Homeland Security Investigations New York office, I want to acknowledge the efforts of Group Supervisor Stephen Lee. Steve, raise your hand. Where's Steve at? Okay. Special Agent John Labatt, who is with us this afternoon, and Special Agent Julissa Ramirez. Julissa here? Who have worked tirelessly on the complicated issue and helped bring it to completion. I would also like to thank Dr. Elizabeth Stone from Stony Brook University and Dr. Eckert Fromm from Yale University for their assistance and expertise in authenticating these artifacts. From U.S. Customs and Border Protection, I want to thank Officer John Rupchis from the National Targeting Center, who initially noted concerns with these packages when they're coming through customs. I also want to thank Charlie Sirocco, Deputy Director with CBP Fines, Penalties, and Forfeitures Division, for ensuring all these pieces and all the other repatriations are stored, packed, shipped, and received in a safe and timely manner. This repatriation alone includes several thousand fragile and priceless artifacts. From the Eastern District of New York, I want to thank Assistant U.S. Attorney Karen Orenstein, who has been a strong advocate for cultural property investigations, who has also lent her expertise in this investigation. ICE most recently returned ancient antiquities and other objects to Iraq back in March of 2015, and since 2008, ICE has recorded and returned more than 1,200 items to Iraq in 5 repatriation ceremonies. While we recognize that cultural property, art, and antiquities are often assigned a dollar value, the culture and symbolic worth of these Iraqi treasures is greater than any monetary value to the people of Iraq. I want to thank you for being here today. I want you to please join me in welcoming to the podium my colleague from the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, my home, Richard Donahue.
Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you, Deputy Director Holman, Deputy Director Holman, Assistant Commissioner Saunders, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, and most of all, Mr. Ambassador. Sir, thank you for having us here in your home. I'm very proud and privileged to be here as part of this important ceremony. In 2010, Hobby Lobby was building a collection of biblical artifacts. The company at that time was offered a trove of cuneiform tablets, cylinder seals, and clay bullae. The deal, however, was fraught with red flags. Moreover, Hobby Lobby's expert advised them to be careful about acquiring Iraqi cultural property because hundreds of thousands of objects had been looted from Iraqi archaeological sites. She warned them that cuneiform tablets and cylinder seals were particularly popular on the market and likely to have been looted. The story should have ended there, but it did not. Instead, Hobby Lobby went ahead and bought the artifacts for approximately $1.6 million. Additionally, they allowed the dealers who were supplying them to decide how they should be shipped to the United States. Unable to prove their legitimate ownership of the pieces, those dealers smuggled the artifacts into the United States. That smuggling gave the United States Department of Justice the authority to seize and forfeit the items, which is exactly what we did with the assistance of our partners in ICE and CBP. But we did more than simply seize and forfeit the artifacts. In our settlement agreement with the company, Hobby Lobby publicly stipulated to the facts in question, agreed to forfeit $3 million as well as additional artifacts, and consented to an 18-month compliance oversight program. The case received substantial media attention in the cultural property community, serving as a deterrent to others who might be tempted to purchase or import potentially looted artifacts. Today, we are happy to return those artifacts to the Republic of Iraq where they belong. Iraq's land was once home to the storied cities and kingdoms of Mesopotamia, a renowned cradle of civilization. Thousands of years ago, Mesopotamians began living in cities with governments, legal codes, brick buildings, and epic poetry. For those of you who didn't travel by foot today, you can thank the ancient Mesopotamians for inventing the wheel. And for those of you checking your watches, you can thank them for the 60-minute hour. But today we celebrate their invention of writing. The writing on these cuneiform tablets describes life in ancient Mesopotamia. Contracts, messages about the distribution of grain, fish, even food for the palace dogs. In those times, professional scribes walked through marketplaces with clay tablets the size of smartphones, recording agreements. Cylinder seals were rolled onto wet clay to document the deals. Clay bullae were attached to sealed containers to identify the goods inside. These artifacts are part of Iraq's illustrious heritage and history, and we are proud of our role in removing them from the black market in antiquities and returning them to their rightful owners. For our office, repatriation is the goal that animates our cultural property work. The partnership between our office and HSI's Art and Antiquities Unit in New York and the Cultural Property Art and Antiquities Program here in Washington is exemplary and has led to many celebrations like today's. In particular, I would like to thank Special Agents John Paul Labatt, Brent Easter, and Julissa Ramirez, and National Program Manager Mary Cook. I thank CBP for safely storing and delivering thousands of fragile items, and the CBP officers in Memphis for answering HSI's call and making the first seizures in this important case. I would also like to thank and recognize the two Assistant United States Attorneys in my office who worked so hard to bring about these results, Karen Orenstein and Amit Kabrawala. Karen Orenstein, our office's cultural property coordinator, has been recognized as a national leader and expert in this area, and her work has resulted in repatriations of stolen cultural property to Egypt, Italy, France, and Mongolia. Amit's work is also international in scope, so much so that he could not be here today because he is serving on detail as the resident legal advisor in Belgrade, Serbia. I also thank the experts who helped us to authenticate and even read these artifacts. Dr. Eckert Fromm from Yale University and Dr. Elizabeth Stone of Stony Brook University. Finally, I again thank and congratulate our law enforcement partners, and most of all our host, the Republic of Iraq. Thank you. And with that, I would ask our colleagues, Mr. Ambassador and Director Holman, to come to the table to sign the ceremonial transfer of the artifacts.
Before we do that, I think we should have a round of applause for all those whose names were mentioned who were part of this investigation. Thank you.